It is Thursday, April 17th. This is Jaguars Happy Hour. Jaguars Happy Hour is brought to you by Dreamfinders Homes. And now, in the spirit of fairness, cause Austen is here tonight, he's going into the octagon next week. Brian Sexton.
Hello, and welcome to Jaguars Happy Hour. Brian Sexton in for JP Shadrick, and we have a full cast in here tonight. You know Jeff Lageman. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to be seen.
When they said, do you want to do Happy Hour? I said, is Jeff going to be there? They said, yes. I said, I'll do it.
Cool.
Glad that you're here. And then they said Austen Lane was going to come sit in, and I said, even better. Austen, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, I'm in here because there's a custody battle between Brent Martineau and you guys right now. So
Right.
it's kind of going back and forth right now. 2 Christmases for me, if you will. But
Nice.
I'm glad to be here again.
Well, we're glad that you're willing to split some time with us.
Absolutely.
Well, and by the way, at least we got the right side of the ball.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
defensive
without a doubt.
guys. I mean, defensive ends. It just goes to
Right.
show you
So we're going to lean heavily on the defense tonight? Is that it?
the intelligence factor went way
Listen, we knew that a
Little
long
more
time ago.
attitude,
Lodge.
way up. Way
A
up.
little more
You're
attitude
bringing
over
the
here.
attitude.
I'll bring the attitude.
You're bringing the intellect.
I'll try.
Here we go. Right? So tonight we'll talk about 1 week to draft night. We'll talk about the principle of value versus need. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk a little bit about players or picks.
And
how this thing
I want to
works.
hear a past story about draft night from Austen Lane.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, look, we had
In central Wisconsin? Oh, I have one for you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Right now?
You got one? Yeah. Might as well do it.
Wanna
You
do it
called
right
for
now?
it. Let's
Yeah,
have it.
okay. I wanna hear your draft
so,
stories.
Yeah, so obviously growing up
So did you get invited to the draft first?
Didn't get invited to the
Okay,
draft.
neither did
Coming
I.
out of Murray State, a 5th round pick. Wasn't going to go to, I guess at the time where it would have been, New York City, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
was always there.
Yeah, so it was weird because coming from a small school, they said anywhere from the 2nd round to the 7th round. Now, this is my agent being a good agent, I think, right?
Yeah,
Like, I think
right.
he had a more feeling of a late round pick, but I'm like, all right, 2nd round, you never know. So we're there the first night. I'm back home in Wisconsin, Iola, Scandinavia, town of 1,300 people. Name doesn't get called. All right, gonna have the party the next day as well.
Right.
So we're at my mom's house. She made brisket, right? About 20 friends were over there. And
So how did she cook it, by the way, in the oven or in the smoker?
Yeah, now you're getting what we really want to talk about.
She's not saying this is Wisconsin, man. We're just gonna put it in the oven and call it a day. And obviously, there's some basic beverages being passed around as well. I was being good.
Lineys, Leinenkugels.
There's some Leinenkugels, some point amber, point.
Point's a beer, by the way.
Point is
a lot
a beer,
of people
by the way.
don't know that that's actually a beer.
Well, we know, just to interrupt your story,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the
yeah.
Jaguars did training camp in Stevens Point, Wisconsin in the summer of 1995.
And that was there,
Point
by the way.
That's where I learned.
and Leinenkugels were the deal at the penalty box right across the
Right
street.
across the street.
The penalty box,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, Jeff, were you there too, or you probably weren't at the penalty box, right? You were,
Oh,
you were in the dorm
no.
rooms,
I think he
right?
found his
No,
way over.
I found many places in Wisconsin.
For sure.
Yeah.
And he'd walk in and, are you a coach?
Oh, yeah.
No.
I never even, by the way, I never even knew what point beer in curds was.
Yeah,
But that's like a big deal in Wisconsin.
oh, it's a staple. It's
so,
a rite of
so
passage.
here we are in Wisconsin for training camp, supposed to have cool weather. Cows are dying in the field.
Chickens in the shed.
It was
Yes.
the warmest summer ever in Wisconsin.
Hottest ever.
Cats and dogs are living together.
And I'm drinking point beer and eating curd.
Listen, you decided to leave New York for Jacksonville. You end up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, how do you know?
But anyway, go
back
on.
to your story.
Yeah, so anyway, so it's the 5th round.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I got a pretty good feeling here. The Raiders were on the clock. And I'm like, I didn't really hear much of Oakland at the time, but I'm thinking, all right, this might be the one. And I get a phone call. It's a 904 number. And I answer the phone. I'm like, okay, this is it, right? So I answer the phone. And at the time, I didn't know who it was, but it was Coach Malarkey. Remember Mike Malarkey?
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
his son who was in the scouting department.
Okay.
Doesn't introduce himself. He just goes, hey, Austen, any good hunting in Wisconsin? And I'm like,
Yeah.
It's funny how he remembers the exact.
Oh, yeah, I remember the exact.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess so. He's like, you'll hunting a lot. I go, when I was in like 2nd grade, I haven't been hunting in forever. Can I ask who's calling, please? Like,
Yeah,
I'm trying
right.
to watch the
Yeah.
draft and
Get to
everything.
the point.
Yeah, exactly. So then he goes, you've been fishing in Wisconsin. And I'm like watching the TV and the Raiders are still on. So I'm like, well, it's a 904 number. It ain't Oakland. I'm like, this must be like prank caller.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to get back at me. So I'm like, man, I haven't been fishing in like 12 years. Why are you asking? And then all of a sudden I see there's a trade goes in. And then it's Jacksonville's now on the board. And then I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. And then finally he goes, do you want to be a Jacksonville Jaguar? And I go, yes, sir, absolutely.
Cool.
But then after that, so, obviously the town goes crazy. Town of 1,300. They had fire trucks driving up and down my mom's street because, they're excited.
Whole town celebration.
Oh, the whole town.
Yeah.
And the funny part about it was that my friends played in a beer league baseball game.
What's a beer league baseball?
So basically think of like
drink beer and
summer
play baseball.
Ball. So think of like a bunch of washed up athletes who never made it to the pros and never made it to minor leagues that are still trying to relive those glory days.
This is baseball, not
this
softball.
This is baseball.
Okay.
So like fast pitch, So I went to go support them after I got drafted. Well, all the TV crews were in town like, where's Austen? Where's Austen? Where's Austen? And my mom's like, he went to his friend's beer league.
He's drinking beer.
So I ended up getting interviewed at the beer league baseball game. They're wondering, what am I doing there? Support my friends. And then the plan was to go to Appleton, Wisconsin. You guys ever been to Appleton?
I'm going next week. That's where we're staying.
That's where you're staying, right? So the place to drink in Wisconsin is Appleton.
And by the way, for everybody that didn't know, that Appleton, Wisconsin has some of the best tubing.
Yes.
On the
good
planet,
call.
by the way, which I tubed down the
Little Wolf River?
Yes.
Years
ago.
Little Wolf River.
Yeah. Anyway.
You are full
This
of
dude is
information
ingrained
tonight.
in Wisconsin,
No,
and I
listen,
appreciate it.
I don't know. Anyway.
So you had him at hunting and fishing.
So we're getting ready to go to Appleton to celebrate, obviously, throw a couple back. And all of a sudden, my mom calls and she goes, hey, the local bowling alley bought you a keg of beer. And supposedly 2 other people bought you 2 other kegs of beer. Oh. Do you want to go to the bowling alley? I'm like, in Wisconsin, if someone buys you a keg of beer, it's like them giving you like a kidney. You know what I'm saying? It's
big deal.
It's the ultimate sacrifice. So instead of going to Appleton, Wisconsin to celebrate, drink at the local bowling alley, and we had fun there.
You stayed true to your roots.
Staying true to my roots.
Austen authentic that night.
You better believe it.
100%.
3 kegs?
3 kegs.
Uh-oh.
How long did that last?
We started, I think, at 9 o'clock, and I think we tapped them out by 11:30.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We had a lot of people then.
And it was the first time I ever drank with my mom was there too, and it's cool. It's like a high school reunion, right? So all your family and friends are there and everything, and that was the first and only time that me and my mom kind of partied together a little bit, and it's the last time for a reason. I'm just gonna say that much. If you ever watched Seinfeld and how remember Elaine Bennis was dancing?
Yeah,
that was my mom embarrassing me. That's what she does though.
So
she was doing these
mom's
things.
cut off from the bruise.
Mom was cut off from the bruise, and of course my friends were encouraging her, keep dancing, Julie, you're doing a great job. And I'm just like, man, get me to Jacksonville, please.
And here you are.
And here I am.
Awesome. And you're back, and you were fighting, and you were on the air with Brent Martineau, our good friend.
Yeah.
That's where the Elaine Bennis reference, I'm sure, comes in a lot of handy.
Without a doubt.
Right. You're a pop culture icon.
I try to be.
A week out from the draft, right? First round, 5th round. What's that like from a player's perspective? I mean, the hay's in the barn, so to speak. I mean, there's not much more you can do. The visits have stopped.
Well, I think everybody's different. But I think there's a lot of anxiety for players. And I think the one thing, too, that the player really is concerned about is making sure that their health and well-being stays intact for the next week.
Right.
Because if anything happens, anything from, falling down a step or being stupid and having too many beers and then something bad happens. I mean, you're highly aware that this is a critical moment, and so you're trying to be on your best behavior. You're trying to do all the right things. But
are you working out, or are you worried about pulling a hamstring and missing?
No,
rookie
you're
camp?
still working out.
Yeah.
But you're not killing it. You're just working out. I think more to take your mind off of what's going to be coming up more than anything, And there's a lot of phone calls that happen in the week leading up to it because you're going to have teams constantly checking on you to make sure that you haven't been hit by a train, a truck, or whatever. And then you also have a lot of calls from friends and family. And that's okay. Yeah. Because, they're just showing that they love you. And that's your support system. And so that part of it is all good. But, yeah, there's a lot of anxiety. And I think the one thing, too, that I remember doing prior to the draft was – You're trying to read, and this was obviously pre-phone internet era when I was drafted.
Right.
You're trying to find out any information that you can.
Just about to ask.
Totally different nowadays
if
than
you had
what
to read.
For Austen, it was different. For me, it was very different because there was no internet.
But did you have a read? I mean, and I would imagine being taken in the earlier rounds, it was a little bit more narrow as opposed to the 5th round.
Yes.
So you had an idea that the Jets were.
No, they actually worked me out, but I was like, at this time, I heard that I could be drafted from maybe late first to second, third. So my window was kind of in that range. But
did you know teams? Were you?
I had an idea, and it's kind of wild how and this was more agent driven, like Austen was talking about, where some of his information came from. Most of my information, that's where it came from, because he was on the phone. Remember, no internet, no cell phones. Okay, the only thing we had was newspapers.
Paleolithic.
So your agent really was the guy that had the information, and so the information that he had, and my agent was Brad Blank out of Boston, Massachusetts, and great guy. Had him my whole career, and I think he still does a little bit of stuff. But he had heard Pittsburgh was a possibility. San Francisco definitely late in the first round, which I think San Francisco ended up drafting the linebacker Keith DeLong out of Tennessee, which I could have been that guy. But there was a couple possibilities, but the Jets were on the radar, but we didn't know that it would be at the 14th overall pick.
So much of the mock draft, all of the mock draft, really is about the first round. Occasionally, guys, they'll stray into the second a little bit, but it gets harder. How about you, sitting there on day 3 in the 5th round? Did you have an idea the Jaguars were interested in you? When you're sitting there deeper into the draft, do you know, or is it just completely waiting and guessing?
So I had a little bit of an idea, but if you're going to tell me to name like the top 20 teams that I thought would be interested, Jacksonville might have been like 30th. Wow. Because I had an in-person interview with them at the Combine. And I'm not sure if you've done this before, Jeff, but like when you do these interviews with the whole like organization, you're at the round table, and it's almost like you're like getting interrogated by the CIA, right? Because there's like a bright light in your face, and there's just darkness behind you. So like I'm trying to see like that's Jack Dory over there. I know him, Mel Tucker. I see him over there, but like it was a very intimidating experience, and it was the first interview that I had at my Combine, and I bombed it. It was the worst ever. I wasn't myself. I was nervous because here you have a kid from Murray State who obviously the deck is already stacked against me. I didn't play against good competition. So I have to purvey the fact of, hey, not only can I play against the competition at the next level, but I'm also like a good team guy, right? So I went above and beyond to try to purvey that. And I wasn't myself, and I was nervous. And even I remember Jack Dorio after the interview goes, "Is this your first one?" I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "I can tell." So I'm like, I'm probably not going to go to Jacksonville. But then lo and behold, they call me. And I'm not sure how you felt about this, Jeff, but the most stressful part about the experience for me was like, anywhere from the second, whatever, third, fifth, maybe free agent. I didn't know. But the most stressful part for me was we're talking 30 different cities that I could possibly live in, right? And that people kind of feel to realize sometimes. It's like, well, I can go to Cleveland, I can go to at the time it was Oakland, but I can go to LA now, I can go to New York. Like that always kind of stressed me out more than anything because, well, I'm about to drop what I'm doing in Wisconsin and go make a new life for myself in a new city. And thankfully, Jacksonville was a cool city. Yeah,
and I kind of had some of the same thoughts, and when you think about mock drafts, I mean, and everybody has a mock draft nowadays. I mean, heck, Martineau's probably got 4 of them out now, right? Yeah. So the only mock draft I think that was happening at that time was Mel Kiper.
It was the big one.
Yeah, I mean, and really that was the
Joe
only.
Bucksbaum did one with Pro Football Weekly.
Yeah, so two. So basically, there was like 2 mock drafts that were put out at that time, and I don't even think I ever even paid attention to it. And when I look back on it, when I was drafted by the Jets, it kind of made sense because I had multiple workouts with different layers of people from that organization.
Right.
Yeah. And it made perfect sense. But
for you and I, the mock draft of record, besides Mel Kiper, which was, by the way, there was no internet, so it really wasn't as big of a thing as the USA Today, which was, back printed newspaper. On the day before the draft, they would do a big mock draft. And Rick Gosselin from the Dallas Morning News was a big part of putting that thing on. The game has changed so dramatically. There's almost too much information.
There's a ton of information. And along the lines of what you were talking about, Austin, about, okay, I'm getting ready to be transported to a new city and I have no idea where. I remember thinking, and because I had friends that were asking me, where would you like to go? And I'm like, you know what, man, I'm kind of a small town guy. Just don't send me to a big city.
Of course. Those are the biggest cities.
Spoken into existence. Here I go.
I got the biggest one on
And
the
they
planet.
booed you, if I recall.
did.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
did.
Nice
in
New York
the Felt
welcome for you.
Forum.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to New York.
And the
Small
great
town
thing
guy.
is that they replay that every year for the draft. So I get a yearly reminder on that.
Yeah.
So-
Well, they haven't forgotten your name now, have they?
I mean, you're afraid of the big city, but was there, because I mean, I can name one. Was there one team or couple teams that you did, like when you saw their name on the clock, you're like, please just skip by me? Because I'll be honest,
Name it.
when Cleveland was on the clock for me, I was like,
That's the place where the river went on fire a couple years ago,
That's
right?
what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
I never had that feeling because being the 14th pick, I never really got to the point where, okay, this is my range.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? When it got to 14 and I was selected, and Mel Kiper was right to some extent, and that maybe the Jets could have traded down and got me maybe a little bit later. So I wasn't expecting to go that high.
Right.
I don't know. I just kind of had, maybe a different mindset at that point. And I said, you know what? I'm going to lower my expectations, even though people are telling me that I could go in the middle of the first round. And my expectation, I'm like, that's not going to happen. I'm going to be picked probably maybe late in the first round and then definitely probably in the second round. So my expectations weren't for that point. So I never was, when each team was on the clock, going, no, please don't pick me. Please don't pick me. Because I'll never forget this. This is the God's honest truth. Because I went the night before the draft, I remember looking at the financials of the year before of where the draft picks were at and what they got paid. So that also, and it's you'll agree with this,
Yes.
okay? You're also in your mind, you're also thinking about if I get picked in the first round, or if I get picked the 40th pick or the 50th pick, or in your case, the fourth round or the fifth round, what's the money like? Because I mean, the reality is, you're a young man getting ready to start
It's
life
pro
out.
football.
And
It's
it's
about
pro
the money.
football, and you're getting paid.
Yeah.
You want to know what you're
NIL
going
wasn't
to
a
get
thing
paid.
yet.
Yeah.
NIL wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And you're thinking in New York, I have to pay a city tax.
I got to pay a lot of taxes.
State tax and the federal income tax.
I had
Where's
it
my
made
money
here,
gonna
man.
go? Yeah, Florida shines brightly there. All right, when we come back, we'll get a little bit more specific, and we'll talk about some players who are going to be around when the Jaguars pick at number 5. The Jaguars' new season is right around the corner, and the time to get your 2025 season tickets is now. Be at the bank for every touchdown. Secure your seats. Go to jaguars.com/tickets. Dial them up at 904-633-2000, and you can do it today. Well, actually, yeah, you can do it today. We don't know what the schedule is yet. This is 1010XL at Jaguars.com, and we're back after this on Jaguars Happy Hour. Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
Our commitment isn't just seen throughout the community. It's celebrated by our patients. Our achievements aren't just found in our labs. They are advancing the way we care for you. Our comforting approach and advocacy aren't just found bedside. They are inspiring the next generation of caregivers. UF Health Jacksonville. Our care never quits. See how at ufhealthjax.org/neverquit.
For 48 straight years, Ford F-Series have been the best-selling trucks in America. We got here by engineering breakthrough technology, redefining Built Ford Tough, and never settling for second best. But what's really made Ford F-Series the #1 selling trucks in America is you. Ford F-Series, Built Ford Tough. Based on 1977 to 2024 calendar year total sales.
Can you imagine rising for work before the crack of dawn? Tending to hundreds of acres of land before dusk? Well, that's what happens on 47,000 Florida farms every day. Florida's farmers work hard to grow nutritious food for you and your family. And you can help support them by enjoying delicious Fresh from Florida produce. Look for the sunny Fresh from Florida logo where you shop, or visit freshfromflorida.com to learn more.
The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with EverBank. Open an EverBank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. EverBank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hi, my name is Charlie Jordan, and I'm the manager of social media for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So as manager of social media, we serve as a bridge between the fans and the franchise. And so my passion is rooted in being a fan, but I also get to work with the team each day. The Bright Future Scholarship was huge for me because I was able to pursue an education at the University of Florida. And because I didn't have to worry about paying for classes, I could spend my time covering the sports teams that I work around. I'm extremely grateful for the Bright Future Scholarship and the Florida Lottery specifically for allowing me to earn an education.
Jaguars football is presented by Fresh from Florida. It's always in season. Welcome back. Jeff Lageman's here. Austen Lane is here. It's Jaguars Happy Hour from the Hyundai Studios on 1010XL and Jaguars.com. Well, the Jags are coming to you. Join us on Thursday, April... Oh, this was last week's. Okay, ignore that.
All good.
Yeah, ignore that.
Move on.
Yep, ignore that. We were talking the other day, and I'm sure you and Brent have talked about it. There are three players that stand out
in
as
my
being
opinion.
elite. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you. Well, how about I throw it to you, and then you guys just go with it.
Yeah,
and
cool.
we'll start with Abdul Carter since we've got two defensive ends in here, right? Abdul Carter from Penn State. I remember watching the Notre Dame game in the college football playoff and thinking that guy could be the number 1 overall pick.
Easily.
Yeah.
Wears number 11 and very similar to Micah Parsons, I think, in so many different ways. Now, I will say this. All of my evaluation has nothing to do with, is he a smart guy? Does he have good character? I don't have a clue.
Right.
Okay, because I'm not privy to any of that kind of information. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at film on an iPad and a Microsoft Surface. That's it. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I think he is the premier pass rusher, and I think he's going to have the same impact as a Micah Parsons when he gets in the NFL. He can play linebacker. He can play with his hand in the ground. You could do all kinds of creative things with him, from a spinner package or what we call, Lawrence Taylor, they didn't call a spinner package. They call it like I can't remember, what do they call that? What did you guys call where you had 3 down and one guy that stood up and then walked around and did all kinds of
You can call it like the Joker.
Joker.
Okay.
So Joker, spinner, whatever you want to call it, he can do anything.
Yeah.
He can do anything. He's so talented.
No, I agree, and I definitely get Micah Parsons vibes from him simply because I still feel like he's a little raw. Like he hasn't even come into his zone yet as a solidified.
He did that one year,
rusher.
right? He was an edge rusher 1 year at Penn State.
Yeah, and I think when you look at him, I mean, the biggest question, and if he was there for the Jaguars, how could you pass him up? Because
hard.
He might be the best player in this draft. But the biggest question is, okay, then, are we taking need or are we taking best player available? Because when you look at Josh Hines-Allen, who you just paid, you have a guy in Trayvon Walker for the first couple of years, has done his thing, who might be in line for new contract. It's going to be hard to justify bringing him in with Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. If that's the case, it's going to be hard to pay. I think Trayvon Walker.
I was just about to say.
You crunch the numbers?
I go back to the Patriots Giants Super Bowl, and you had Matthias Kaiwanuka and
Tuck.
You had Justin Tuck, and you had Michael Strahan. I mean, they just came in waves.
Yep.
And for a team that has 2 really good pass rushers. 2 years ago, they were the number 1 pass rush duo in the NFL with 27.5 sacks. But did you feel like 2 years ago in 2023 they had enough?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if Abdul Carter was there, it'd be really hard to say no.
You can never have enough, and there's always ways that defensive coordinators. I mean, look, you give them 3 guys like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have an absolute joy of figuring out. And one of the things I think that impresses me about Carter is that he's got great stamina. Great stamina, great closing speed, and great finish, which makes him special. Like we were saying, I believe there's 3 players that are elite at the top.
Right.
I would put him up there. Travis Hunter is in that same category.
We're going to talk about him next.
And I would view him as a wide receiver first.
All right, well, let's go there.
Okay.
Why? Because he clearly was very talented on defense.
He's the most effortless wide receiver that I've arguably watched in the last 15, 20 years
Really?
watching film.
Who did you compare it to? Who else have you seen that's so effortless?
I don't. That's my point. I don't think I've seen anybody that's of his caliber.
Really?
He makes everything look so easy. Okay, the difficult catch. Okay, one hand out, grabs it, no problem. Body control, no problem. Okay, subtle push-offs and advanced route running, no problem. He does everything at a level that it's ridiculous, and that people are having this conversation about can he play both ways. When you're an effortless athlete, the possibility of playing both ways exists because I mean the way he plays the game, it's not like it's smooth and effortless. To where his heart rate sometimes, the way when you watch him, you sit there and you wonder if his heart rate even went over 100.
Yeah.
Is there another player in any position that you would call effortless? I'm trying to think
in
of
this
somebody.
draft.
No. Just give us a player who's effortless in the NFL.
I played with one of them. And actually, last time I was on the show, we talked about him. The off-the-field stuff aside, Justin Blackmon was an effortless receiver. Because there's some guys, take Tyreek Hill. You watch him run routes, he's really chopping his feet. He's really exerting himself. I agree here with Jeff. Travis Hunter, it's like he's not even trying. It's not fair. Yeah. And Justin Blackmon was the same way, where he would just go up and make these catches and come down with them dude, you should be gritting or whatever you want to do, celebrating. And he's just yeah, that's what I do. Yeah. And I think Hunter fits that mold.
I would say that one of the Sharp brothers, not Shannon, but Sterling.
Yes.
Sterling was a very effortless wide receiver, going a little bit old school here. Mm-hmm. And then had the neck issue, which, but I mean, he was kind of along those same lines. But obviously, I think he's way, way, way more advanced than Sterling Sharp is. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams view him and how they utilize him, because I don't think anybody can play the NFL truly in a two-way capacity. You have to have one be the dominant one and the next one be kind of a supplemental package. And if it were my decision, I would have him as a wide receiver and then find some packages to play him as a defensive back.
But, Jeff, let me ask you this, though. When we talk about finding that groove, finding that rhythm, isn't it easier to have a package or a couple packages on offense to kind of rotate him in and then get his reps on defense playing cornerback? Because I feel like if you come in cold as a cornerback and you're going against Justin Jefferson, you're going against Tyreek Hill, isn't that harder to adapt as opposed to playing the wide receiver position where, Liam Cohen's going to drop some packages for you?
I think it's easier to manage it. Mm-hmm. I think for the way you're talking, I think it totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. But here's my thing. Do I want to have somebody that's going to touch the ball 80 times in a season?
That makes a lot of sense.
Or somebody maybe touch the ball as a defensive back maybe 4 or 5. Yeah. There's more of a game-changing opportunity when the ball's touched that many times.
So
it's like, who do you want? You want Jerry Rice or do you want Deion Sanders?
Well, Jerry Rice,
but Deion's not going to return for you now.
Yeah.
I mean, just as a as a
you need touchdowns.
back.
And listen, from the Jaguars' perspective, and this team needs touchdown makers, right? Yeah. I mean, especially with Christian and with Evan gone. But before we get to the touchdown maker, just evaluate Hunter as a cornerback for me. Since you talked about him being effortless as a receiver, does that translate to the defensive side of the ball also?
The ball skills, yeah, from that aspect of it, the ball skills, and then also the body control. And he's effortless on defense as well, but it's not as natural. Because on offense, it looks more natural on offense because you know where you're going, whereas defensively, it's more reactionary. And he's got the skill set, make no mistake about it, and he's the best corner on the board, period. But would I separate him from the defensive back at Texas, and I can't remember his name, who's phenomenal? Barron.
Yeah.
Okay. Would I separate him? Is the gap like that from Barron? No, I think the gap's closer. But the gap from the wide receivers in this draft to Travis Hunter, it's miles apart.
See it the same way?
I really do. Okay. Yeah, I mean, especially, and the way I look at it is this. The whole goal should be to see what we have with Trevor Lawrence now going forward, right? You have an offensive-minded coach. We haven't seen the best version of Trevor Lawrence yet. If you put him at wide receiver, that's going to help elevate, I feel like, the best performance that Trevor Lawrence can give you. So not only is it what's best for the team, but what's best for your franchise quarterback as well.
Now, why do you think that Travis Hunter was in lockstep with Shedeur Sanders everywhere they went. Do you think Deion's a dumb guy?
No.
No.
Yeah. And
No.
I just think that the biggest issue, though, going forward, Jeff, is what is that percentage going to look like? Because he's made it abundantly clear. He's been on an interview saying, I want to play both ways, and what's going to happen when it's, maybe he's on offense and all of a sudden it's fourth down and he wants to go and, the game's on the line. Do you put him in there then? So trying to balance him and getting that ratio of offense to defense, that's going to be the challenge. He's going to play well regardless of where he's going to be.
Can you
It's
imagine
finding that balance?
Can you imagine, let's say he is what we think he is, right? It actually would be 6 years from now. What's his contract look like if this guy is actually not a full-time two-way player, but at least a partial two-way player?
Yeah, what if he has 6 or 8 touchdowns on offense and 4 or 5 interceptions on defense?
It's going to be monumental. It's going to be groundbreaking because you're
biggest
essentially going to be
contract in
paying
history.
for 2 players.
Yeah.
Two top-level players.
All right, let's do this. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll hit that third elite-level player when we return to Jaguars Happy Hour on 1010XL and Jaguars.com. Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
What's the best part about lawn care during the winter? You can give it a rest. Lawns only need watering up to once a week. Really, that's it. Using less water means you're saving time and money that you can put towards something else. Before you run your sprinklers, remember, give it a rest and only water up to once a week. For more information, visit waterlessflorida.com.
The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with Everbank. Open an Everbank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. Everbank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hey, I'm Logan Cook, punter for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Driving distracted or stolen is dangerous for you, and it's dangerous for everyone on the road around you. Ride with Do Not Disturb. That call, text, or social media message can wait. Choose your music before you turn on the ignition. Anytime your eyes are not on the road ahead, you're distracted, so pay attention. But remember, drive high equals DUI. Plan ahead, have a designated driver, keep a clear head to see clear ahead, and let's get everyone home safely.
What makes that famous call
Dinner's ready!
even better? It's cooking a great meal with natural gas, enjoying faster cooking times and precise temperature control. And now getting a valuable cash rebate up to $300 when you install an energy-efficient natural gas range or cooktop.
Anyone want seconds?
When you show your home love with natural gas, it loves you right back. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
Floridians, do you know how close you are to freshness? It's not a plane or a ship ride away. It's not across an ocean or over the equator. It's not even a far drive. The peak of freshness is at your grocery store, and it's called Fresh from Florida. Fresh from Florida is local produce grown by farmers right here in our own state, meaning it's always fresh, always in season, and always mouth-wateringly good. Look for the sunny Fresh from Florida logo or ask for it by name where you shop.
And we're back on Jaguars Happy Hour. Take a look at the party ahead at Daly's Place. And there are some big shows coming up. Old Dominion's in on June the 6th. Avril Lavigne on June the 23rd. Here's one that sounds good to me, Slightly Stupid, on June 26th. And live.
I like them, by the way.
Slightly Stupid.
Kind of got a little bit of a reggae
Beach
kind of
vibes.
swing to it. Yeah,
Absolutely.
nice.
And Shania Twain's in on July 29th. Head to dailysplace.com now for tickets and show information. Welcome back. Jaguars Happy Hour. Brian Sexton in for JP Shadrick this evening. And we are in the Hyundai Studios on 1010XL and Jaguars.com. All right, now we bring to the one that is being debated in and around North Florida, and that's the running back, Ashton Jeanty, without any filter. Tell us what you think.
I think he's one of the 3 best players in the draft, but the question mark, I think, becomes is, do you value that position to that level? There's no debate that he's got speed, he's got vision, he's got power. He runs through more tackles arguably than anybody that I've ever watched.
Here's the number. He had 1,700 yards after contact last year as part of a 2,600-yard season, which was more than the next running back had total, Amarian Hampton, the kid from North Carolina, in 2024.
Yeah, and Hampton, I would put him probably at the bottom of the first, second round.
Okay.
But
he's a big guy,
But
6'2".
Jenny is, he's got the size. Even though they didn't utilize him as a receiver, he can do it. When he was asked to do it, no problem. He's got home run speed, and I think the thing that impresses me is that when you watch him in pass protection, which is always a kind of a stumbling block for young running backs, no problem. Mm-hmm. When you the only question mark I think that you may have about Jenny is ball security. He had a couple fumbles. Yeah. In his career, and that's an issue that sometimes when that's the only thing you can point to as maybe a weakness, sometimes it gets talked about probably more than it should be.
He's been compared, Austen, to Barry Sanders in terms of production. He's been compared to LaDainian Tomlinson in terms of versatility.
I've seen that one. Yeah.
He scores a lot of touchdowns. So Christian McCaffrey. And then you said Saquon Barkley to me the other day. And so
I pose this question to you, and I'll pose it to you, Austen.
Please.
If you could draft Saquon Barkley in the top 5, would you do it?
I mean, he essentially won the Eagles a Super Bowl. How can you pass that up?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
yes.
So, there's a lot. Look, and I'm not saying that the Jaguars should draft him.
Yeah.
Because, look, there's some other great players on the board. Mason Graham, the tackle out of LSU, there's a lot of great players there. And when you're drafting at 5, it's kind of hard to make a mistake, although there's been teams that have done that.
Yeah.
But I think Jenny's got to be in the conversation just because, again, I think he's one of those 3 elite players.
So I went down a rabbit hole the past couple of days because I'm trying to put myself in James Gladstone's shoes. And we hear the terminology intangibly rich. Well, what does that mean? So I look back at, the Rams' last draft that he was there. And if you look at the quote-unquote intangibly rich players, well, who do they take? They take Jared Verse with their first pick, okay? Jared Verse, in terms of production, was the second highest rated in terms of production edge rusher that they could get. Who do they take next? They take Fisk, defensive tackle. Biggest thing about him was a little on the short side, had stubby arms, had small hands, had athleticism, but didn't really have the size, the mold to be maybe a defensive tackle.
The traits that they look for.
The traits, exactly. But what did he have? He was second at his defensive tackle position in production. So then we go third. You take Blake Corum. Some people said, we're going to take it in the 3rd round. Blake Corum, you already got a guy in Henderson there or whatever. They take him. Well, Blake Corum led the FBS in touchdowns that year. And then the next pick then was Kitchens out of Miami. If you remember how he all panned out, Kitchens was a safety who ran like a 4.6, had a horrible combine. In terms of athleticism metrics, he was like, I want to say he was like 30 or 40th. It was bad. But in terms of production, he was second. This is the calling card of what the Rams are looking for last year. And that, to me, is what intangibly rich means. So if we're talking about production, if we're talking about a guy who can make a difference on the field, Hunter's one of those guys. Carter's one of those guys. But you can't bypass Ashton Jeanty, though, either.
Yeah, remember also what the Buccaneers did last year when Liam Cohen fixed the running game and took him from the bottom 3 to the top 3, and Baker Mayfield had the best season of his career. That would be very enticing to me. This team needs touchdowns.
I also think it's interesting that, Austen, you're using the word production.
Yeah.
The word that we've heard around here for the last few years has been traits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. And
a little sly smile on your face.
So, I like that word, production, more than I do traits. And I think you have to weigh more on production of a college player than you do about traits and trying to because that's forecasting. And nobody has a crystal ball. At least, we used to have those magic 8 balls, right? But that's not going to tell you the proper answer all the time. But I mean, I think that's the mindset with James Gladstone when he talks about intangibly rich. You want to have the production, but you also have to have the character that backs it and surrounds that production.
So let me argue for drafting Genty. Regardless of position, this franchise needs elite players, and you said he's one of the 3 elite players in this draft. They also need the difference maker, the culture setter, and it sure seems this is a guy who bypassed the chance to go make a whole lot more money in the NIL before his big season at Boise State. He had the opportunity.
That's an intangible.
That makes him intangibly rich. I just think this is a franchise. You can try to piece it together, or you can just build it with those blocks of granite that are great players who are great people that help you get there. If this is both of those, I don't care what position he plays. I mean, outside of quarterback, because you're so committed there. Give me this guy. You don't have Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram anymore. You need production in the end zone. This is the second running back in the history of college football to have more than 2,600 yards. And he had 29 touchdowns. What's to argue with?
Yeah. And listen, you can say with Liam Cohen last year with that offense, yes, you had Mike Evans, you had Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
But at one point, they were both hurt. And they relied on Bucky Irvin, who was,
a
fresh face.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want to look at his metrics, look at his athleticism, which was, I think he was like 20th overall or something like that, and look at his production. He was top 5 in production for running backs with Bucky Irvin. But my biggest thing is when Liam Cohen got in front of the media for the first time, and I told Brent this, I'm like, listen to who he mentions first in terms of the people, like the players that he's talking about. He mentioned Brian Thomas Jr., obviously he mentioned Trevor Lawrence, and he mentioned the 2 running backs. Now, he didn't mention Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk.
No.
And I even told Brent, I'm like, that's not good for Evan Ingram or Christian Kirk. If your coach's first press conference, he gets in front of there talking about the team, and he doesn't mention you, that's not a good look. And lo and behold, Christian Kirk now is in Houston and Evan Ingram's in Denver. So it comes down to is how much does Liam Cohen and James Gladstone like, how much do they like Travis Etienne? How much do they like Tank Bigsby? And if you do get a guy like Ashton Genty, then what's the plan going to be? Are you going to plan on moving Travis Etienne? Is Tank Bigsby still going to be here? Those are questions that got to get asked too.
Yeah, that's a problem you'd like to have.
2 years,
figure it out.
2 seasons ago, Etienne gave you 11 touchdowns. So you've had some production, but he didn't have a really good season last year. And you wonder, he's playing on a, $5.5 million fifth-year option, something just shy of $6 million. The counterfactual to this argument is that it's one of the better drafts for running backs that we've seen in recent years. It goes deep. But how many of them are elite? I mean,
there's none of them in Jenny's class. I mean, can you get a good running back in the second round? Sure, you can get a good running back in the second round. Are you going to get one to the level of Genty? I don't think so. Yeah. Offensive lineman. Let's say you draft one at 5. Could you get an offensive lineman that's in the same neighborhood as the offensive lineman you might get at 5? Probably so.
Well, Brandon Linder was a 3rd-round pick and played here for 8 seasons.
Sure. There's always separation and there's elites, and those 3 guys I believe are the elite players. Look, I think that the quarterbacks have a lot of great things to offer, but I think they're talked about at the top because of the position that they play. Cam Ward has some elite throws and elite ability. Shedeur Sanders has some elite pocket ability that is very impressive. But if they weren't quarterbacks, I don't think they would be talked about in the top of the draft.
We talk so much about the offensive line being fortified to improve the running game. The running back can improve the running game and make those offensive linemen look a lot better too. Yeah. And I thought, again, I'm interpreting, but I even thought it maybe heard that from Liam Cohen in one of his answers where he talked about there were some different things we could do to open things up, jet screens, that's where I thought, just take this guy if he's there for you, because he can take the offensive line and elevate its play.
Well, here's a great question. I mean, look, if Hunter's there and Carter's there and Jenny's there, which one of those 3 would you take? It's a great question. The one thing
I got to help my quarterback
about Jenny that's interesting to me is that he was born here.
Yeah, sure. Family was a military
here and
family.
raised here. I think for the first 7 years of his life.
Yeah.
So just a little added little note there, but I think if I had to have one of those 3, I'm taking Hunter.
Yeah,
agreed.
I'm taking Hunter.
Yeah, you could justify that because it is a good draft for running backs, and you can find a guy that can help you. And you have two guys that you think can play.
And he's not going to be there.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to be there. I mean, it'd be crazy if he was there, unless teams get desperate for the quarterback, and this can happen every single year. But I think in terms of tangibly rich, does it get any more tangibly rich than Travis Hunter? I mean, the dude's like Scrooge McDuck when it comes to tangibly rich. I mean, he's got on both sides of the ball.
That, again, is a Brent Martineau kind of reference. That's
Scrooge
awesome.
McDuck?
Yeah, no, listen, I don't think he would say
man.
that, but it fits perfectly.
I got you.
We appreciate that. All right, when we come back, let's talk about other players that you like. All right? This is Jaguars Happy Hour on 1010XL and Jaguars.com. When we return, we go a little bit deeper into the first round of the draft, and we're back after this. Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game. The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with EverBank. Open an EverBank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. EverBank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hi, my name is Charlie Jordan, and I'm the manager of social media for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So as manager of social media, we serve as a bridge between the fans and the franchise. And so my passion is rooted in being a fan, but I also get to work with the team each day. The Bright Future Scholarship was huge for me because I was able to pursue an education at the University of Florida. And because I didn't have to worry about paying for classes, I could spend my time covering the sports teams that I work around. I'm extremely grateful for the Bright Future Scholarship and the Florida Lottery specifically for allowing me to earn an education.
When disaster strikes, trust the experts at ServPro. As a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, they bring the same dedication and precision to restoring your property as the Jaguars do on the field. Whether it's water, fire, or storm damage, their highly trained professionals are on call 24/7 to make it like it never even happened. ServPro, your local leader in restoration and cleanup.
For 48 straight years, Ford F-Series have been the best-selling trucks in America. We got here by engineering breakthrough technology, redefining built Ford tough, and never settling for second best. But what's really made Ford F-Series the #1 selling trucks in America is you. Ford F-Series, built Ford tough. Based on 1977 to 2024 calendar year total sales.
Hey, I'm Logan Cook, punter for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Driving distracted or stolen is dangerous for you, and it's dangerous for everyone on the road around you. Ride with Do Not Disturb. That call, text, or social media message can wait. Choose your music before you turn on the ignition. Anytime your eyes are not on the road ahead, you're distracted, so pay attention. But remember, drive high equals DUI. Plan ahead, have a designated driver, keep a clear head to see clear ahead, and let's get everyone home safely.
Rolling right along here towards the 5 o'clock hour, at which point we say good night and happy Easter to all of you. Brian, Austen Lane, Jeff Lageman here in the Hyundai Studios on 1010XL and Jaguars.com. And Jaguars Happy Hour is presented by Dreamfinders Homes, official home builder of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So let's talk about a couple of other guys. The most popular name associated with the Jaguars, because mock drafts take need and marry it with value. And listen, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan, is right there, right? I mean, he's a need, and he's a guy who fits in the top 5 to 7. Now, we're not talking about elite level player, are we? But we're talking about a really good football player, really productive football player.
There we go.
What do you think?
That's the key word. So when it comes to Mason Graham, because let's be honest here, you're bringing him in to get after the quarterback.
Yeah.
You need interior push. If you want to look at this defense last year, one of the gaping holes was interior push. You had it on the edge. You had Josh Hines down. You had Trayvon Walker getting home in the backfield. But interior-wise, it just wasn't there. Mason Graham, I think, when we talk about breaking down a pass rusher, 3 phases. There's the get-off, there's the move area, and there's the finish. Mason Graham has the get-off and the finish in spades. That's already there, in my opinion. The move area part is where he has to improve a little bit. And that's, refining the pass rush moves and things like that. But I think if we talk about his background, he was a pretty prolific high school wrestler. It shows up on film a lot. He's got great contact balance, plays with a lot of hand balance, which I come from the Joel Cohen school of hand balance. I know how important that is. And I think he just has that want to. He has that attitude, that demeanor that you look for in a defensive tackle. Now, size is a question, right? And this is where I think people have 2 varying opinions. I'm from the opinion of sometimes you got to put aside those preconceived notions of what a defensive tackle looks like. He's not built like Jalen Carter. He's not built like Jordan Davis, right? But he's also taller than Aaron Donald was, okay? So I don't think the size is going to be an issue. Some people do. I think the size is going to be just fine for him. The length and everything will be just fine. The biggest thing with him is, can you get him with a coach that can refine his pass rush moves a little bit? And if you can, I think you have a game change on your hands.
Yeah, he's a dominant player, like Austen was saying, strong. I don't think there's anything negative about him. But when you're talking about a defensive tackle at 5, the one thing that you would like to have, because this is a passing league now, is you want to have a guy that shows that he can be a dominant pass rusher, that can affect the passing game. And I think I don't think it's a question mark because he can push the pocket, but is he truly an elite player in the inside? I don't think anybody would say that he's going to be Aaron Donald. I mean, there's never been a guy like that anyway. I mean, there's very few and far between. But can he be a Chris Jones type? I don't know. I don't know if I would say that.
Well, he's not as big as Chris, obviously. So you're talking about a guy that
the length. He doesn't have that length.
And Jones moves all over the line, right?
Correct.
Could you see this guy moving? I mean, is he a 3 technique or?
Well, he could play 1. He can play a 3. He can play a 4-eye. He can play a 5.
Okay.
Is he going to be a wide 9 or a 7? Which is outside.
You got
with a
those
true
guys.
defensive end.
Yeah.
That's probably not where he belongs. But he's I think the greatest thing about him that I would say, he's an ultimate competitor. Mm-hmm. Every play matters. And when you're talking about intangibles, there you go. I mean, that right there fills the bucket up with this guy. Ultimate competitor.
And people are going to look at the sack numbers, right, and say it's a little low for my liking. But once again, if we're taking in the metrics and everything of production, he's first in his class at defensive tackle in terms of production, because sometimes it doesn't come from just getting quarterback sacks. Sometimes it comes from pressure. Sometimes it comes from taking on double teams and doing your job. And sometimes it comes from just, getting the backfield and causing chaos. And I think Mason Graham can do those things.
His floor is
high.
Is way
It's a safe one, I feel like. Yeah.
Whereas, one of the next best defensive tackles being talked about in the draft, Walter Nolan from Mississippi, right? Mm-hmm. He's a guy that at times shows dominance, Chris Jones dominance. Yep. But the consistency, the ultimate competitor part, if you could morph the 2 of those guys together, oh my God, you'd have, then you would have a guy that you would say, elite player in the draft, add him to the other 3.
I think if you gave him Mason Graham's mindset, he would be a top 5 pick himself.
By far.
But it's just this guy's, there's a little question of the effort and the want to.
So who else do you like? Give me a player that if the Jaguars get stuck or if they trade back a few spots, who do you like?
At 5?
Well, no, let's just say the Jaguars.
I like a lot of players.
All right,
How much time do you got? Give me more picks.
We've got 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So let's just say, give me another player you like, regardless of position, where you are on the draft. Who would you like to have on this roster?
Well, first of all, I think there's a lot of really good edge rushers in this draft. I mean, a lot of really good edge rushers. And a lot of guys are put at the top that I don't know necessarily should be at the top. But I hope they stay there because that pushes what I believe the more productive types down to the Jaguars, which you could possibly get in round 2. For example, the guy at Georgia, I think it's Michael Williams, right?
Michael Williams. And Jalen Walker's the other one, right?
And I like Michael Williams, okay? And then Shamar Stewart, another guy from Texas A&M. Where's that word at? Production.
Yep, correct.
I mean, everybody keeps talking about potential and all that. Look, I hope they get drafted in the first round because that's going to push guys that have had production down the Jaguars in round 2. And there's a lot of guys to pick from, I think, at that position in round 2.
You got a guy in Shamar Stewart, I believe is 6'7". I think he ran like a 4.4 or 4.5 at the combine. This guy is a freak of nature. He is built. I mean, he is built for NFL greatness. But then you watch the film from college, and it's like, well, are they not using him correctly? He's not giving effort because he didn't have the stats. Now he goes to the Senior Bowl and tears it apart. The one-on-one drills, nobody could stop him. So then it's like you're watching him. It's like, well, then which one am I going to get? Am I getting the guy at Texas A&M who, for whatever reason, wasn't that productive? Or am I getting this guy at the Senior Bowl who was taking prisoners? It's just there's always a risk with those type of guys. If you're asking me and how I think this draft could shake out, like, listen, Hunter would be great in the first round. Right?
Yeah.
Carter would be great. I don't think they're going to be there,
No.
right? So maybe you go Mason Graham in the first round, you go defensive tackle. So then what are you talking about the second round? I'm trying to help out Trevor Lawrence. A wide receiver who I really like a lot, Luther Burden out of Mizzou.
Kid from Mizzou.
Mizzou. This is a guy who, he's kind of an anomaly because the way they used him, he's super talented, he's quick, he's agile, but all he ran was 5-yard outs. All he ran was slants because they want to get him the ball as much as possible. I think in this Liam Cohen offense with creativity and motion, you can put this guy in motion, get him open, and he can do the rest. And in terms of, once again, production score, he was 3rd overall in terms of wide receivers. You got Hunter, you got Tet McMillan, and then you got Luther Burden.
The wide receiver along those lines, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, what's his name?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I just probably butchered his name as well.
Yeah, I don't want to butcher it, so I'm looking for it.
Leave it to the defensive players to butcher the name, man.
You guys go for it.
But the one thing I love about him, he's got game-changing speed.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, he's character-wise, he is as intangibly rich as there could possibly be when it comes from a character standpoint.
Let me get your comment on a guy that I love. I love watching him play, the tight end Tyler Warren, who last year was, I mean, they used him in every conceivable way except putting his hand on the ground and playing left tackle.
He's special. He's special. I mean, look, I think he's got to be considered in the top 8.
I've seen him as high as 6. That's kind of where it
believe
seems.
it. And would I consider him for if I'm the Jaguars at 5? I'd have a hard time doing that just because I feel really good about where they are with Brenton Strange and about where his trajectory is going to go. And Warren I see as more of that special pass-catching tight end. I think Brenton Strange can be that. I would be looking more for an inline type of tight end if I'm the Jaguars.
And this is not a bad draft for tight ends. I think
no,
it's
actually
pretty
has
deep.
some solid players, very solid players.
Emeka Egbuka is the wide receiver that you were talking about from Ohio State.
Love him. Love him. Guy can take the top off the defense, touchdown maker, pair him with BTJ, look out.
Position that you want to add to here on this roster that people aren't thinking of. We're talking about helping the quarterback with touchdown makers for sure. We've talked about a lot of different positions on that side. Where else would you? And listen, we spend so much time on the first round because that's where people's interest is.
Sure.
Maybe second round people will go through that. But players, right? Wherever you find them.
You got to get some interior offensive linemen.
Okay.
I mean, when you're addressing a position like the Jaguars did in free agency, with as much money and resources at that position, that means that you've got a glaring need, and you're just trying to patch it in free agency. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're not solving it in free agency. You solve issues with the draft. That's the lifeblood of every franchise. You can patch it up a little bit to get you through, but to truly solve it and address it, you've got to do it in the draft. I expect the Jaguars to draft at least 3 offensive linemen.
And we haven't talked at all about the secondary, but obviously there's a need there too.
Without a doubt. If you look at what this defense is going to be, and we have to see it for ourselves first, right? You have to see who you have for your personnel. But if it's going to be kind of like a Vic Fangio type of defense, because this is the coaching tree that it's coming from, you got to have smart, calculated guys in the back end, especially at the safety position. Right, because you're going to be asked to play a lot of coverages, kind of switch up some things every once in a while. And last year we saw way too many explosive plays out of the secondary. So I think safety and maybe even cornerback could be a huge need for them.
I think safety's right. I think safety is going to be one of the positions that will be addressed. And when you looked at Green Bay last year, the one thing that impressed me about them, They never had what the Jaguars had, which was breakdowns that led to explosives. Green Bay never had that. And so the hope is that, okay, you got a guy from that coaching tree, and that mindset comes here to Jacksonville, and now you got to get the players to execute it.
We're done.
Don't break.
Yeah, we're done. Who do they pick?
I'm taking Graham.
You? Who would you take? They say Jeff.
I mean, if Hunter's there, but I think Mason Graham.
If Hunter's there, I'm taking him.
Yeah. But. Is he going to be there, Jeff?
Because that's kind of a cop-out.
Yeah.
We all know he's not going to be there.
I'm taking Mason.
But we're
Graham.
out of time, so I got to let this one go. I'll be in Green Bay. I'll join you guys next week.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Trip.
Thank you very much, and thanks for joining us. Thank you,
Thanks for having me.
joining us. And we're back next week here on 1010XL.